Hey everyone, welcome to You'll Probably Agree. Today I have the director of Flow, which is I thought uh The Wild Robot was gonna be my favorite animated movie of the year. And then in came this movie from behind to knock it out, and that is Flow. I have director Gints Zilbalodis on with us. How are you doing today, Gints?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just gonna start off this interview by asking, this movie doesn't have any dialogue in it, which can be quite a challenge, I can imagine. How did you come up with the idea of making an animated film with no dialogue?
Well, all the films I've made so far are without dialogue, so this was pretty much given. It wasn't like a big decision, and yeah, I feel like more comfortable actually telling stories without dialogue. It's something I maybe consider one of my strengths, and or at least where I feel, yeah, more comfortable. Like for me, dialogue would be a bigger challenge, I think, and um. So when I come up with stories, I try to think about stories where it makes sense that they don't speak. And in this case, it's a story about animals behaving like animals, and we don't see any humans. And that was also exciting. I think it gives more stuff to do for the animators. They can really express a lot through the body language and the movement but yeah, also without dialogue, we can kind of use the other tools of cinema and push them a lot further, like the music and sound and editing and cinematography. And so, yeah, I think in animation, like it's fairly becoming more and more common, actually, like these dialogue-free films. Um, Now even features, but like short films, I think for years we've seen many short films without dialogue. So I think audiences are really don't have any problem with that.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of Wall-E a bit, where it's like the first half of that movie had no dialogue, and then when the second half had dialogue, it actually kind of drag the quality of the movie a bit. So I was I was glad that this movie, like throughout the whole thing, no one spoke. It actually like really made the images come to life a lot more and kind of drew you into the story more. What challenges did you find when making the film?
There are many challenges. I don't know, like writing a script is a big challenge. I think creatively that's the biggest challenge. Just making sure that it's an ensemble story. So making sure that each of these characters are interesting enough when we pay enough attention to all of them and they go on their own journeys and change and they're not like antagonists. They're maybe flawed, but they're not like good or evil. So that was tricky. But technically, I think like maybe the water is the biggest challenge. In any film, creating water is really hard because it's hard to control, and usually there's like a big team of like technical artists in films like this. But in our case, it was just two people, and there's a lot of water and all kinds of different shots where there's like a river and a lake and ocean and rain and splashes and so we had to develop all kinds of tools for this and but that was important because it's such an important part of the story. It kind of maybe the water is at least in the beginning the antagonist. It's what drives the story and but later it becomes like it shows how the cat is feeling because we don't have dialogue. We have to use the water in this case to express what it's feeling. And so, yeah, it's a big part of the storytelling.
Yeah. The film has this sort of cell-shaded look. Like if you've ever played The Last Guardian, it kind of has that sort of look to it where there's like a cartoon character that's sort of 2D, but it's also 3D, and it has like this background that's like fully 3D. How did you come about developing the look for the film?
It was a long process. Yeah, because if you're aiming for realism, it's kind of clear what the rules are. It's either real or not, but when you try to do something stylized, it's more subjective. You can do all kinds of styles, but yeah, that was our approach to kind of avoid that hyper real look, which has been done, and I think been done many times. So I think people are starting to get bored of that and are embracing more all kinds of styles, and I think we can be more expressive and emotional with kind of yeah more stylized look, and so we only put detail where it's necessary, and we like. But I do want to create like an immersive world where you get to sense all these textures and the wind and the water, but like I don't want to render all the furs, like every individual strand of hair on these animals, and I think then you lose some of that expressiveness and appeal. So it was about finding the balance, but actually, like it's the same technique, the same materials for the world and the characters. It's just that we see the characters more up close, and there's like they're filling the screen to get that emotion, and with the landscapes, it's just more wide. So that's part of the look, but another part is the camera movement, which was important for me to kind of use the camera as like in a very active way where it's moving and really like expressing emotion, and there are these long shots which you don't usually see in animated films.
Yeah, that reminds me, like the movie did like a lot of like long takes. What was the process like creating such complex sequences?
Yeah, so we didn't use storyboards because the camera moves so much, you can't draw that. There's
Hmm.
some shots which are 5 minutes long. So instead, I designed the scenes in 3D using like a virtual camera, and it's a long process. It took me like a year and a half to figure them out. But it's where I enjoy the most. Like the staging of the camera and the music are my favorite parts. But yeah, it's a very intuitive, spontaneous process where I don't know if a shot will be 5 seconds or 5 minutes. So it's like a very like a process of discovery.
Yeah. So the movie's titled Flow, and is it in relation to the flow of water that destroys most of the world the animals in the world inhabit?
Yeah, it is related to the water, which is of course important, but yeah, it also relates to the main character, which is the cat who kind of stubbornly goes against the flow and does things its own way, but eventually kind of accepts it and accepts the flow and accepts other characters, kind of opens up to them.
Yeah. So like in the beginning, the dogs hunt for a fish while the cat is getting chased after. Then later in the film, they all work together during a cataclysmic event. So what is the film trying to say about humanity's need to work together if it is?
Exactly what you said. Like, I think if these characters would be on their own, they would probably not make it. So that was a team of kind of figuring out how to collaborate and trust others. It's a personal story to me as well because it's this is the first film I've done with a team. I used to work alone, and so that was intentional to kind of use that personal aspect and put it on the screen.
Yeah. So why do you think if I like humans behave like animals and cause these events like global warming to happen, is it greed or fear or both, or what do you think it is?
I don't think animals cause global warming
Right,
so
yeah, it's like humanity that did it where they had to run away, yeah.
so I don't know. Yeah, I'm not an expert on human behavior, but yeah, it's just I think yeah we can like maybe see in these animals some sort of humanity and kind of uh see ourselves within them and maybe like understand that maybe yeah we need to work together and trust each other instead of being selfish.
Yeah. It's funny, like during the flood, the dog who lands on the tree branch, like the cat. rejects him. She's trying to like get him away by like almost scratching at him. And then later when the dog tries to get into the house that the cat was inhabiting, she wouldn't let him into the house. Why do you think the cat was so distrusting of other animals until she kind of had a change of heart like later on in the film?
Well, in that scene, it wasn't that the cat didn't allow, it was just like the dog wasn't able to jump up as the cat did up on the into the window. No, the first time we see the dogs, they're chasing after the cat, so I think we can understand why the cat would not trust them in the beginning.
Yeah, it seemed like the dog was like more trusting than the cat it seemed, but then like later on she seemed to change a little more. So it was like a nice little change of characteristics there.
Well,
Uh,
well, the dog, that's the dog's journey. It
yeah,
goes on the opposite journey as the cat. It starts
yeah,
being very trustful and actually becomes more independent. So that
yeah.
was important to show like the positives and negatives of both of these ideas.
Yeah, and it's kind of similar to animals in real life. Like cats are much more self-reliant and they don't really like rely on people as much as like dogs do, which like my dog I have to my dog's a million times more work than my cat is. Where my cat she'll just kind of do her own thing, but the dog is always like codependent on people. So I thought it did a good job kind of capturing that. Uh the score is
Yeah,
fan Oh, I'm
that was
sorry.
our goal to kind of have these characters start out being almost archetypical, and then eventually break these archetypes and have them behave in some contradictory way, which I think makes interesting characters where they do not behave how you would expect them to behave eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, the score is fantastic. How did you go about developing it with your composer? Richard's is called Zalupe? Is that how you say his last name? I'm not sure.
It's Richard Zaljupe. Yeah,
Zalupe. Okay.
so
Richard.
it's uh, so I write the music early while writing the script, and I'm not really writing it for specific scenes. It's like just explorations. And I create a lot of material, so only a small part of that ends up on the screen. But then I have a lot of options to choose from. But it's important to have the music early because it inspires the story. It gives me ideas for how the story develops, and I don't want to leave that for like the end where everything's already settled in its place. And so, yeah, but I'm not like very experienced in terms of music. I don't play instruments myself. I can't read sheet music, but I can write it electronically on my laptop. So, but yeah, after making that first animatic version, we brought on another composer, Richards, who is much more experienced and he added a lot more layers and depth and nuance to the themes I'd written, and then we actually recorded many instruments with real musicians and a real orchestra, and um, so yeah, I think it's the best of both worlds, where it's kind of because I'm kind of inexperienced. I think this allows me to come up with some unconventional solutions to not do the most conventional way, because I don't know really the proper way of doing things. I'm kind of making stuff up. But then Richard's really like actually adds a lot more like professionalism and nuance, and so but yeah, it's really important, the music. So it's really driving the scenes often, and there are long scenes where it's just the music and not even sound effects, and so I wanted to give enough space for the music to develop.
Yeah. So where did you draw your visual inspirations from? Was it all just from you, or did you see various films and you kind of want, oh, I kind of want to get that kind of look for my movie?
Um, it's a long answer. I don't know. It developed over the years. I'm not someone who actively tries to reference films. I know there are filmmakers who want to like take a piece from that film or that film and put them all together, but for me, it's more kind of subconsciously, where I've seen all kinds of films, and then yeah, they just instinctually I'm kind of making these decisions. But yeah, it's I think it's more inspired by live action films than animated ones, and the way that filmmakers use the camera and that kind of sensibility. I think I wanted to create. I think it allows me to both create a bigger sense of immersion with this type of camera, but also a sense of intimacy where we get to go very close to the characters and experience the world through their eyes, basically. So yeah, it's more from live action than animation, but yeah, I would say also like there's Studio Ghibli influence and the way that they show nature and have these kind of how unpredictable those films are because it's kind of they have their own world and their own set of rules and they're not following the conventional story structure. It's very kind of almost dream-based logic, but also very emotional, which I really resonate with.
Gins, thank you so much for coming on. Where can we find your movie? Because I think it came out, but I don't know if it's still in theaters or not. Because I'm a critic, so I get, the links to everything. Although I did
Yeah,
see it in the music
it's
box,
in
of course.
theaters, so you should be able to find screenings in the US and Canada.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And if you guys liked what you saw, feel free to check out YPA reviews. The YPA stands for You'll Probably Agree, and you'll be able to find us on social media on TikTok at YPA Review Chicago. And thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one.